Hello, and I'm Hannah Bragman here, joined by Katie and Bea, going for the LGBTQ plus officer roles. So tell me, why are you interested in these roles?
Who wants to take that? I guess for me as an individual, like something that we really want to focus on is accessibility, because we feel like that's something that perhaps needs a little bit more work on and a bit more progression. I was actually reading a Stonewall report, and in it said that exactly 51% of UK LGBTQ disabled students actually hide their identities at university, and I think that's such a shocking statistic as someone who is a disabled LGBTQ student, and something I did actually do myself before I came to uni. I was really drawn to the role because I was like, I want to sort of marry those two elements of being a student.
I think as well, I'm actually currently one of the lesbian representatives on the network. I just think seeing like some of the events and stuff, like very much there's a sense of like, oh, we've got a club night, we've got like non-drinking like events and stuff. We want to do more events, and we want to make sure they're accessible, and we want to consider everyone. We're the LGBTQ officers, but that also doesn't erase the fact that people who are part of other minority groups attend our events, and we really want to be more intersectionally led with the approach.
Of course, and you mentioned accessibility there, and in your manifesto you also focus on it quite heavily.
Yes.
So how are you planning on making these club nights more accessible, more comfortable for more people?
Well, I think a big part of our campaign, we've made sure that all of our posts are accessible, which is something that's very important.
Just like the colour contrast. They can be read.
Yes, they can be read. But in terms of the club nights, even stuff like, you know, silent discos, so for people who have epilepsy, who can't look at flashing lights, or just people who have any sensory issues or mental health issues, any sense of anxiety for why they can't go to the club, whatever situation they may be in, having those silent discos or quiet movie nights, for example. Or we said a big thing that we've seen also is a lot of LGBTQ events that are accessible or also then always sober, and that's not necessarily the case, because there will be so many students who perhaps don't like the clubbing environment but still want to have a drink and have a social time. Have a chat.
Sometimes sitting in Bobo's and having a cocktail is the best time you can have. Why aren't we doing something similar on campus?
Exactly.
Very true. And another thing you mentioned was about combating misgendering in class. So how do you plan to combat this?
So I think there's been some really great approaches by lecturers. Some of my classes, I'm on the English course, so perhaps it's a bit skewed here. We'll ask for like your pronouns and things like that, but I think we want to make that a more compulsory approach. You should have to be allowed to state your gender and like have that transparency with your lecturers, that they understand I'm not just a woman or things like that. And I think, things like making sure that people's pronouns are able to be accessed, but even just self-identification. It's so complex within the uni. I live in like a house full of trans people, and the process to go through it is just so difficult.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining us. We will now go over to Studio Red.